to another Not So Technical. Today we are going to be looking at putting the boat at anchor. Now we're going to do a dry run on the dock side to show you how we do it, rather than do it live when we're on the sea or on a lake. So we're going to be looking at our particular winch. The boat's gaining on me. We have a mechanical winch. There is also an electrical anchor winch as well, but for the purpose of today, because we only have a mechanical anchor winch, we're going to show you how that one actually works. So as part of the mechanical workings of the anchor, we have this. Now you'll notice there's a little bit of rope on the end of it, and this is to put through your wrist so you don't drop this in the water, because we've only got one of these on board. But this handle will fit in this star shape for the anchor. Now this is going to be for when we wind the anchor back up. We don't need this right at this moment, but I wanted to show you that before we get going. Another piece of equipment that you have when you put the boat at anchor is using what's called a snubber. Now the reason you do this is when the anchor and the chain is out, the whole weight of the boat at anchor would be on this fixing here. Now, although it's really strong, it's not strong enough to hold a boat in a tidal flow or if it's in a windy condition. So we have a thing called a snubber, and what that does is it attaches to the chain, it then attaches to a cleat on the boat. The cleat then takes the weight of the anchor chain and thus takes the weight of the boat. Now, it sounds a bit technical, but we've made a homemade one which is good enough with very strong nylon rope. One end will attach to the chain, the other end to the boat. We'll show you how this works in a little while. So first of all, we're going to look at releasing the anchor. Now if you look over to our anchor here, we actually have a safety pin. Now this will come out. You've got to be careful not to drop this in the water, obviously, but this will make sure that the anchor is now ready to go. That will go in your pocket. Obviously this will all be done from on deck, but for the purposes of showing you in the shot, we're doing this on the dock. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is release the clutch on the anchor winch. To release the chain, obviously the anchor is attached to it. But if you notice, and if we can get the camera to the back, there's a little stay here, which is a locking mechanism, and that will release the wheel of the clutch. And that will work like so. That's ready to go. As we release the clutch, it enables the chain and the anchor to fall. Now obviously it would fall under its own weight when we're actually on the water. Again, I don't want it breaking my toes, so I'm doing this under a control condition. So, the clutch is loose, chain is falling out. Now, for the observant of you, you'll notice that there are painted marks every so often along the chain. We intermittently paint red and white, and they are at 2 metre intervals. And we call these the shackles. The bigger boats actually have a shackle in between. But this enables us to keep an eye on how much anchor chain that we're putting out. And that depends on the depth of the water that we're anchoring in, because you need the anchor to grab, and the chain will keep the weight of the boat on the anchor when the boat is at anchor. It's a little bit tricky to lay it out here. But the thing I do want to show you is at the very end of the chain, we have a piece of rope. Now this is where the "I'm at my end of my rope" phrase comes from. If for any reason we get snagged and we can't bring the anchor back up, we can always cut the rope with a knife, which means that we can release the boat. We lose the anchor and we lose the chain, but it does mean that the boat is free to continue. We've actually wound this back in for the purposes of this, because you'd never have the anchor chain out fully to its rope's end. However, now is the time to attach the snubber. Now we actually attach these are stronger than they look, these particular ends, and then this would go back to our cleat, which then means as the boat is at anchor, this would pull on this and not actually pull on the chain. Now in actual fact, I would, in reality, put these a little bit further down the chain. So we would end up with that sort of reality. So there's no strain on this. There's no strain on the anchor winch fixings. So we're going to wind the anchor back in again now. First things first, the snubber comes off. I'm just going to rescue that from the cleat so I don't accidentally knock it in on the dock side. And now we're going to wind this back in. Now we're going to wind the anchor in. So the winder goes in, the snubber is already off, and we literally wind the anchor in. We've put the clip, which is the brake and the lock, we had that in, so it now can't go back on itself. So even if I get tired halfway through winding it in, it's not going to go out again. Remember to put the safety clip back in. Lock that off, take the handle out, tighten the clutch, and we're away. So the observant amongst you will notice that on the front of the boat we have a metal panel. Now this is to protect the boat and the fiberglass gel as the anchor comes up and goes back into its stay. So just to recap, we put the anchor out, we put the snubber on. One thing that I didn't mention is that when the anchor is dug in, to make sure it's dug in, we reverse the boat back slightly to pull the anchor into the substrate of what's under the water and the mud, or the silt, or the sand, wherever we may be. But by pulling the boat back, it digs the anchor in, brings the anchor chain tight, and then we can let the rest of the chain out, then we put the snubber on. So one of the things that we do is when we're anchored in a lake, we don't like the boat swinging on the anchor position. It's a little bit uncomfortable, it's a little bit blowy, it's not so great, and eventually you just get giddy. So we put an anchor out at the back on the stern as well, and we have a grappling hook anchor for that that's just tied to a cleat on a long length of rope with a little bit of chain on it for weight. We throw it out the back of the boat, and that actually keeps the boat in line, in a position against the two anchors. It makes it a lot more comfortable than when you're sitting there having lunch or having a cup of tea. Well, I hope that was helpful to you. Again, it's just our way of showing you how we put our boat at anchor. I'm sure many others have their own ways of doing it. Anyway, if you like what you've seen, please comment below, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.